Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is ILEANA from Phoenix on the Rise, a company that helps women connect to their higher self and live richer and more fulfilling lives. I am back today with another interview with a courageous woman. Today, I am speaking to Alison Pearson, who is a registered nurse and has been working in that capacity for the last 25 plus years in the UK, Pakistan, South Africa, and Malta. So that is her day job. However, she also does some other very interesting things. She is a Reiki practitioner, and she also walks the shamanic path. So Alison is a very good example of someone who walks the two worlds. She works with the spirit world, and she's very well grounded in our physical reality. And this is very important for people to understand that you can do both. And I'm going to go through some questions with her to find out how she does that. I was fortunate enough to meet Alison a few months ago. She's a lovely person and a fantastic practitioner. And despite the fact that she's seen many things in her life that most of us will never see, she has retained her joie de vivre. She's very kind, knowledgeable, compassionate, and loving. And those are very wonderful qualities that I am blessed to have her as my friend. So, Alison, thank you so much for being with us. I'm very excited to talk to you about your shamanic path and those other things that you do that are of really great interest to us. So I want to start off by asking you about when you were younger. Did you have any idea you would be following a little bit of a different path, shall we say, in your life?
I always had voices that told me things, and for me, I thought that was what everybody had. Everybody had people chatting and telling them things and warning them about things, and don't do this, don't do that, be careful.
So your guides were always speaking to you?
Always.
Right.
It's like the telephone line is connected.
Right.
And I grew up in a very hard, cold northern town in the UK. I was sent to Methodist Church, which is very basic, and really didn't quite fit in there.
Can you imagine?
I know. And I knew that I wasn't meant to be with these people. And so at sort of 15, 16, I went to try, and remember, this is a long time ago, a long time ago now. I went to try and find my way. And so I went to a Spiritualist Church.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
There are Spiritualist churches in the UK. There are many of them. And they are like a normal church, and, you know, service and songs and things like that. But part of the service is where a medium stands on the podium and relays information that they've got the telephone line, relays that information to people in the audience.
And this is people who have departed, who are talking to members of the audience.
And it could be way back.
Yes.
And it could be way back. It could be First World War stuff. And they would describe the person that was with them. They would describe how they passed, and they would describe the message, or they would bring animals, they would bring flowers. And I was like, yeah, this is,
This really resonated with you.
This is okay. Yeah, I get that stuff. And
I just want to ask you, how did people in the audience react? Like, were they happy? You could see their emotions. You could see that they really connected to the information they were receiving.
It was full. There were, Derby at that time wasn't a city. It didn't become a city to the late 70s. And there were two Spiritualist churches in Derby, not just one, but two.
Yeah.
So it was full. You're talking about 50 people easily that would fit into that small church.
And it was full. Yes.
It was full. And they were very happy. They were older than me. They were used to going. They, you know, it was part of their lives.
And it was a very different kind of a service.
Yes. Yes.
Very,
very, very different. And the mediums, every week you had someone different.
Interesting. Yeah. So like guest speakers kind of thing.
No, there were guest mediums. So they would move around the country. So they would announce. So we would go on Sunday, and then the end of the service, they say, and next week we have from Bolton or from mostly northern, sort of the Midlands belt, because you're not going to travel far. And so I got a flavour of it.
I went to a spiritualist church myself when I was doing some house sitting in the UK a couple of years ago. And I went because I knew there was a lot of them in the UK. I'd never experienced it before, but I found it very interesting. It was the same. A young man who was a medium came and stood on the podium on stage, and then he started to just pass messages on to different people. And his descriptions really resonated with people, and they understood who was talking to them. I found it a very interesting experience. Yeah. Okay, great. So that was your first kind of inkling that you were going to kind of tread a different path. And then you got into...
Yes. Many years later, I was on the podium.
Wow.
So many years later, I stood on the podium and I was giving the stuff back.
Very cool.
So it's funny in life
how you turn around, you come full circle. Yeah. Very interesting. So tell me about the Reiki. How did that happen?
My son, Thomas, is profoundly disabled, and he had a lot of problems with pain. He's got Still's arthritis, a form of arthritis called Still's disease. And I watched this child go through hell. He suffered a lot. And so I just knew there must be something else I could give him apart from painkillers and anti-inflammatories and so I found somebody, a lady called Catherine, who agreed to teach me, and she initiated me. It was just her and me, just the two of us, and I spent all day with her. And when I was initiated the first time, we were in a room in the hills. If you imagine Derbyshire is like lots of hills, big green valleys and things like that. And her house
sounds beautiful.
Was on a hill like this.
Wow. Okay.
We were sitting in this room and she's done this initiation, and I opened my eyes and looked out of this window, and in the sky was this like a round rainbow that was all shiny and golden and sparkly, and I went, "What's that?" She says, "I don't know."
So she saw it also. It was definitely.
And I said, "I have never seen anything like that before. It's beautiful. It's like a round rainbowy kind of thing."
Yes.
Yes, she said, "Very strange." Well,
very interesting. What a sign. What an amazing sign.
A sign. Yeah. So I don't know how I drove home that day because I was wee. And then she instructed me to practice. You must find people, you must practice, you must get used to using the symbols, you must get used to drawing down the energy and using it in your hands and, you know, those sorts of things. So, okay, off I go, start practicing. And I start practicing, and as I'm practicing on people, I'm starting to see things as if I am watching a television screen.
Wow.
And these things were coming back at me. I'm like, they don't belong to me. They're not mine. I rang Catherine. I said, "Listen, Catherine,
something's happening."
And Catherine said, "Well, very, very rarely. That's part of the Reiki. It's not your stuff.
Right.
It's for them. You're entering the energetic Reiki centers, your chakra centers. You're working on that energy that spins within that chakra system, and you're entering that energy, and that is coming back, and you have to give them whatever it is that you see."
So the visions that you get, you have to impart to them.
Yes, and they can be things that happened in somebody's past, something that's going to happen in the future, something that's happened to them now, a memory, an important thing they have to consider
and process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Fascinating.
all time is now when I step into there. So as I step into that energetic line, all time is now.
Yes. So you work outside of linear time.
Yes. So you can imagine I've got the forward clock, the backward clock, and I'm straight in the middle.
That's fascinating. Wow. So
You can change things.
yes.
Things.
No, that's
I do change things. I can change things. I can take away things. I can make it better. I can stop things. I can slow things. I can draw light energy into areas that are not doing so well.
And that's how you do your work. So how were you able to help your son with that?
He was less restless.
Okay.
He was less restless. He was less aggressive.
So there was a calming effect.
It calmed him.
Right.
And he almost seemed more able to cope with all the problems that were coming.
Okay.
It seemed to allow him the torture that he went through, that he could like do it as a step at a time thing, not scream and cry. It's almost as if he grew up.
Right. So that was an important modality for you to
for him to work with, because he's autistic as well. There's lots of things that were at that time very difficult for him. And so it enabled him to stop being frustrated and aggressive sometimes.
So there was many benefits to doing the Reiki.
Him, yes.
I'm assuming you did it on a regular basis.
When he wanted it.
Okay.
You have to have the consent of the individual.
Yes, that's right.
When he was like, oh, mommy, I'm tired. And I go, okay.
Right.
So yeah, I'm tired now.
Yeah.
Fed up now. I don't want this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then at some point you got into shamanism. Tell us that story.
Yes. So I've had this huge download for the Reiki.
Right.
And at that time, spirituality books, things like that were very limited. So I knew I was just like hungry for knowledge. Remember, there was no internet then. There was no internet.
I remember those days. Tiny bookstores, yeah.
Tiny bookstores, that's right. Yeah. So, and I love bookstores. My God, the smell of a bookstore.
Especially the old ones, yeah.
Yeah, the possibilities, gosh. Anyway, so I went to Waterstones, this new bookshop that had been open a couple of years in the town where I grew up in. And I went to the spiritualist and the spiritual and development section.
Self-help section, right?
Self-help, which was tiny.
Yes.
And I stood there and I go, okay, guys, give me a clue. What should I choose? What should I choose? I stood there and I said, come on, guys, the telephone's on. What should I choose? What would you recommend? and I pulled one book. And the book was by my teacher, Alberto Vidulu, and it was called Shaman, Healer, Sage. And I took this book, and it's pale blue, it's lovely colour. And I thought, is this it? Is this it? They go, yeah. So I bought that one. And I read it.
A few times from what you told me.
A few times I read this book and I read this book. And
so what happened when you were reading? Tell me the internal process. What happened? Were you starting to think?
Yes. There is more. I am grasping for something else more tangible.
Right.
that I obviously am going to connect with, because I was connecting with the writings in the book. I do not know. I knew other Reiki practitioners who didn't work like me. I did not know any other shaman. I had never met another shaman. And I read this book, and I read this book. I went on holiday with my sister to Egypt, and I took the book with me. And she went, "How many times have you read that book?" And I said, "Oh, a few. Do you not think it's about time you got another one?" And I thought, no.
Yeah.
And at the back of the book, there was information about the courses that they did. And I thought, on the plane back from our holiday, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I rang up and I said, I'm interested in doing your course. And she went, "Well, we've got one starting in 6 weeks' time. It's in Devon. It's in a place called Gaunt's House." And I went, yeah, I think I'd like to join. And I paid the money, and I eventually found Gaunt's House in Devon, which is in the middle of nowhere, and met with 60 other people. My South class, the very first class I did was the South. And I've done a lot of qualifications. I've been to university. I've got a lot of qualifications.
So you did 1 week intensive from what you told me, and then you had 6 months to practice.
Yes. And then I went back.
And you went back for more, right?
More.
So the theme of today's discussion is actually following your inner guidance. And this was the other reason I wanted to do this interview with you, because you're so tuned into that. And, you went to the Spiritualist Church, and that was kind of like your first kind of
Taste. That was the first taste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, the whole Reiki thing happened, and that came from a place of wanting to help other people, especially your son. Mm-hmm. And slowly you got introduced. So you were kind of getting accustomed to the whole idea of working in those realms. And when you started to get the visions, of course, that was even more. And then you were led to shamanism, and you started to pursue that, and it became your passion. Am I right in saying that that's your passion?
Yes. That I felt.
You came home.
I came home.
Right.
I was actually with people who were from all over the world. There were people there from Australia, Canada, Europe, Germany, Switzerland, all over the world. These people had heard the call, as we say, as shaman.
Yes.
And they didn't know any shaman, but they knew there was more. They knew. My mother said to me the very first day, "Are you coming home?" But she was looking after my children and sorted everything out, because I didn't know what I was actually going to do until I got on this course. And I went, "No, I'm not coming home. I'm staying for the week."
Right.
I'm in.
That's awesome. And then you studied it for a long time, right?
Long time. You work at it, and you work at it, and you work at it. Yes. You work on yourself.
Yes.
That's much as
number one, right?
Number one. You are learning about how the energetic world in its many forms works, where you can get disease, where you can get attachments, where you can get problems, where you can get issues, and historical stuff going back through lineages, through your family lines, whatever. And you're starting to explore all those realms that you knew were there anyway, kind of, but now it's very tangible. It's very
and personal.
Yes.
Because you work from inner to outer. So once you work with yourself, then you can start.
Yes. So you have to have the experiences of having an illumination, an extraction, a soul retrieval, taking things to fire, working with the fire, in order then to be able to work with somebody else in their process, in their shedding, in their removal, in their transformation.
Yes.
They've changed. We work at the energetic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So shamanism is a modality that works, of course, in the energetic realm, but is very grounded to the earth, to the elements, to the planet. Tell us a little bit about the moon. That's right. So it's grounded in all of those physical things, but it's tethered also in the other realm. So it is definitely you're walking the two worlds, right?
Yes, you do.
And
Cleanly.
there are different types of shamanism, right?
Yes, we are fires, but there is water, there is wind. Each element has its own shaman. We are a path of light, but you can walk the path of the darkness. There are many of us, but we all have our own flavor.
Right, right. Very interesting. And then there's earth, right? Because that's the four elements.
Yeah.
Fire, earth, air, and water.
So you think how powerful all of them are. Earthquakes, lightning,
right?
Storms, hurricanes,
Tsunamis, yes.
Yeah, they're incredibly,
yeah,
very, very powerful. Each one of those modalities is very powerful in its own way.
Work with those forces in a contained sort of way.
Yes.
Fascinating. So tell us a really surprising story. Tell us a story that will kind of illustrate the shamanic work that you do.
I was asked to go and help somebody pass. They were in hospital, they were in ICU. They rang me and said, could you help her? She's restless and her time has come. Would you help her shift to the other world? And that's a job we do. I said, okay. And they were Asian family. So this
was in the UK, right? Where people are quite used to this type of work, a lot more than other places.
Not uncommon to have a call to go to ICU, to go to a hospice, to go to someone's nursing home. Because they're restless, they're ready to go. Come and settle them, come and take them sweetly and gently home.
And this had nothing to do with your nursing work. This was pure shamanic work. Okay.
Pure shamanic work.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I go, I wear my equipment. I don't do anything invasive in an ICU situation. And I do my work. And it took about 1.5 hours. And at one layer I am removing from this lady, I can see a very interesting, the whole of the energetic field there was a layer that was stuck. There was something that had been imprinted in that layer that had stuck all her chakras at that point in her life. And as I took that layer away and released that layer, my goodness, everything changed. I watched it all go. And it was.
So her chakras all opened up.
Yes, everything changed then. When that piece had gone, when I had taken that piece away, everything calmed down.
So it was like pulling the stop.
Yes. And I said to the family, I'm going to go now. I'll be here, visiting's like 4 till 7 and kind of thing. And they were coming in and out and I was just sitting there. I said, I'll come back tomorrow and do a bit more for her, if that's okay. Yeah, come back. So about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they ring me and they said, I don't know what's going on, but she's out of ICU. She's a lot better. And they put her on a ward. And I thought, that's good. Okay, so I went back and that she's on a ward and she's looking pretty good, actually, for somebody in her late 70s. So I started working again. And there's a little old Asian lady sitting next to me.
She's like the grandma.
She's a relative. She is a relative, but she's old too. And she's watching me under my cloak working, and she's watching exactly what I'm doing. So she's watching me focus on each chakra system and work with each chakra system and then clear each one as they go. And she goes, she shuffles a chair up to me and she goes, I help you.
That's
I
lovely.
help you. And I was like, oh, BBG, yes. Yes, DK, come. So she knew.
Yes.
She knew what I was doing, and she came to help me. This lady lived another 7 years.
Were you supposed to help her cross over, and you
No, we actually
actually got her to live another 7 years?
That happens when you take away layers and layers and layers of someone's life. They can breathe.
That are not layers that are not helping.
Not helping them.
Yeah.
And, you know, all the emotions and all the impacts that you've taken, you're lifting it off and you're lifting it off and and it's beautiful to see somebody all of a sudden feel lighter. Plus, in the shamanic world, we call that recapitulation. It's your last bit of time to talk.
Right.
We value a bit more time.
Right.
And she got 7 years.
Beautiful.
And so having had that whole experience with that individual and with my little friend, I then felt much more confident in going into other institutions and places. And I went to work in a hospice. They asked me to go to this hospice because this guy was dying and he was really restless and irritable, and they were sedating him, and he was just really, really unhappy. He was scared, basically.
Yes. To cross
over, they're scared.
Yeah.
And usually when I go to a place, I have to open a space that's clean for me to work in. And I opened my space to work in, and I got knocked over. Oh, because the light opened in the hospice, and all the people that were sort of hanging around, they went, oh, let's go.
Wow. So you opened a portal.
I opened a portal, which is the way we work. We work in that space that's for us. And they saw the space and they went, let's go.
Yes, because they were halfway there, right? They were already halfway on.
They were already halfway there. And I was like, oh my goodness me, it's like getting lost in the crush.
Yeah.
I was going, no, help yourselves. I mean, come on. You've been hanging around for a while.
That's amazing work. So let me just understand. The Reiki you can do remotely.
Yes.
Shamanic work, you need to be there in person. Is that right?
Yes. Apart from sometimes I ask to do a spiral unwind. Sometimes when I do my Reiki, sometimes I will ask, would this help them?
Okay.
Would a spiral unwind help them? And I gently bring their energetic body over, or I've got a prayer thing that I use, and I've got crystals that I use, and I bring them down onto it and I work on that, and then I send it back. So that's the one piece that I do remotely.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. I'm so happy you came. So let's.
I'm so happy you came too. I'm so happy.
Thank you. Let's say somebody needs your help. Can you clearly tell people how it is that you can help them, especially remotely, I would say at this point, and how they can get a hold of you?
That would be through you.
Okay.
Okay. Because I work from an energetic standpoint. You don't need to talk to me about what it is that bothers you. You don't need to tell me, things. Generally, I don't speak to the people that I'm asked to work on because I like it clean. Sometimes the telephone line goes, have a chat with them. Very occasionally, very rarely, I get there, have a chat, get a feel. There's something you need to learn. And that's fine. And I do talk, but I'm an energy thing. And sometimes people need the energy, but they need you to have the other things that are rattling around. They need that as well. They need more than just energy work. Energy work can change things at different levels, but the processes that are rattling need to be changed in a different modality, in a different way.
Yeah, so the inner work and the inner child work and
Yes,
core
yes,
work, those kinds of things.
those kinds of things.
You can start the process energetically.
Yes.
And then they can follow up with the actual, in-person coaching or life.
Yes, because
that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I shifted stuff, I moved things about, and they still have that process to discuss those things. Yeah.
So for true transformation, both modalities work together very well.
Yes. Yeah, because
kind of kickstart.
Because you need this bit sorting and you need your energy sorting.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
That's how it works.
Thank you so much, Alison. I really appreciate your coming. And
I enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.